All right, welcome to the Prison Wallets. I'm Keith, and this is Ray. So this was an idea that I had that I just thought we could do like a ranking because we're big fans of Friday the 13th films from way back from when we were youngins, and we just end up blabbing about them a lot anyway. Just we're watching on YouTube. We just put up the Kill compilation video that's on YouTube. It's like 35 minutes of just people dying. I'm sure if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll probably just steal this guy's exact work and I'll just lay it over top of what we're doing right now for the YouTube version. But the idea I had was we could just go through each Friday the 13th movie one at a time and just briefly talk about each one, kind of what we thought about it or whatever. And then we can rank them. So just as we go, I'll add like the movie to the list. And then the next movie will go start at the bottom and be like, is it better than this one? Is it better than that one? Just to see where they all end up in the end. Because I just think that'll be fun and interesting.
I think so too. I mean, I think it's going to take a little bit longer than this video, but whatever. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, because a lot of our ideas, they don't sound that in-depth. But once you get going, it just kind of goes. But let's start at the classic beginning, Friday the 13th, part 1. It's weird because it's certainly not my favorite, but, you had to start somewhere. And if it were the only one they ever made, like, yeah, it'd be good. Be a pretty good film. It's just weird because it's compared to, it's almost not a Jason movie.
Well, it's definitely not a Jason movie because Jason is only in it at the very end when he kind of jumps out of the lake and pulls the Alice character off of the canoe into the water. And, that's his grand exposure in the movie. The killer is the mom, so...
Yeah, quite a bizarre thing, too. Like, I could easily see them just leaving out that scene entirely of Jason at the end. If they wanted to just make it a one-off movie, just end with the chick in the lake, everything's okay, hit credits, that would have been fine. But the good old 80s, they're all about fucking shoulder pads and cocaine and making money, and they're like, you know what, let's just put some weird shit at the end, because maybe we'll make one more, maybe we'll make 11 more, whatever.
Actually, they didn't intend on making any more after the first one. The studio was like, hey, this made a fucking bunch of money, so make another one.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing, like we were also just saying in our our Nightmare on Elm Street 2 commentary that we did, they also didn't necessarily intend to make more. And in a way, I really do think that's kind of the better way to go. Like, when movies, when they're set up to have sequels, it's just like, well, the one I always think of, maybe Saw is not fair with the first Saw. I don't know if they really intended more after the first one. But after the first one, they definitely did. They were like, oh, gears are turning, let's make these. And I remember by like Saw 4, it was so fucking stupid where the dude Jigsaw, that's setting up all the games for everybody.
Right.
He's dead. He's in the fucking coroner's office. His corpse is there. And when they're doing the autopsy, they find a cassette tape that he left in his own corpse. And they play the tape and he's like, the game's not over. And I'm like, fuck you. Like, come on. That's too much. I like the 80s movies. Like, they made an absurd number of sequels, but they were kind of weird and disconnected and like, let's just keep going. Anyway, I'm just rambling at this point. So obviously on our list, Friday the 13th one, I guess we'll talk about it more as we compare the other movies to it. But right now on our list, we have one film, Friday the 13th, part 1. So it's the de facto top of the list right now. And
right.
Anything we should say about it, or should we just move on to Jason?
No, everything that can be said about Friday the 13th, the first one, it's very simple. It's set up the genre, really, for better or for worse. I think, Halloween was before Friday the 13th, but when Friday the 13th came out, it really kicked off the slasher genre, like, harder than Halloween did. So it definitely did something. Without it, we probably wouldn't have had many of the other great slasher movies that came about afterwards.
Yeah, it's actually interesting too to look at it that way, where obviously Jason and Michael Myers have a lot of similarities, but when you just look at that first movie, it's not even that much of a Halloween ripoff, really. It is in the sense that it's a slasher, but there's not a Michael Myers type guy. It's just Pamela Voorhees. It's like, it's a whole different feel to the movie.
It's a mom who's gone crazy, and she's killing camp counselors because she has this vendetta, I guess, against camp counselors because they were off doing what teenagers do, getting drunk, smoking weed, fucking whatever, and her kid died because they were busy getting busy.
Yeah, it's still like an unlikely scenario, but it's pretty down to earth. Like, it makes sense. It's like it's definitely like, yeah, it's funny. Like, I didn't know either, I guess, because when I was a kid, I only knew the hockey mask. So when I saw Friday the 13th Part 1, I was really surprised. I had no idea that it was not Jason. I'm like, this is not what I expected. And to be honest, I thought it was a little boring because I was a dumb little kid and I expected Jason to be in it. So then Friday the 13th Part 2, I haven't actually seen it in a while, but I always really liked it because obviously the hockey mask was important. Like, for him to be this iconic character, you needed the mask, and like, it wouldn't have survived like it did without it. But I actually really like the bag on the head. I think it's a really good look.
The bag on the head was interesting, and I mean, obviously, a mongoloid in the woods doesn't have access to a bunch of modern stuff like mask materials or whatever, so he's just going to grab the first thing that he can and kind of utilize that. I thought the kills were really great in that. I mean, the one that you see a lot in a lot of these sort of clips that you see on, like, I don't know, horror award shows and stuff back in the day, is the machete in the face of the cripple guy in the wheelchair, and he's going down the stairs backwards. Like, I remember that, a lot. Yeah. You see it in the clips as well, the beginning of future Friday the 13th movies.
It's true, too, because as soon as you say it, I can visualize it. Like, yeah, they definitely played that one up a lot. And I love, too, just him having the mummified head of his mom in the cabin, and where the chick wore the mom's sweater just to confuse him, like, right, talking like as if it's the mom, and you get that little, like, Jason's point of view where he's like, what the fuck's going on? Like, it's like, my mom's talking to me, but she's dead. Like, what's happening? And you get retard vision.
But yeah, it was a good movie, and you also saw as well, he did things like Jason did things like some of the campers stumbled across the dog that had gone missing, the little dog, and it had been partially eaten. So, and he fucking killed that little dog and ate it, which is amazing.
They really never play up that aspect later on, and like, that kind of thing never comes up again. But yeah, like, I like that Jason 2 had hit that sweet spot where Part 1 was a really well done, just like killing camp counselors movie. But 2 hit that, like, level of outlandishness of this big hulking dude who lives in the woods, has his mom's head in the cabin, like, that I really dig. Like, I really could sink my teeth into more. But all right, if we're going to put it in our list then, so I guess we've only got Part 1. So is Part 2 better or worse than Part 1?
You know what? I'm going to go with better, personally.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think 2 is the best. A lot of these, I think, early on, it's just going to kind of be the list of them coming out. But 3. So 3 doesn't stick in my memory as much as 2. The main things I remember, well, I think it's funny that they were like, I feel like this franchise is getting a little old. What are we going to do? Let's try 3D. But what they didn't know is all they really needed was that hockey mask. Just that inadvertent thing of the hockey mask is what really did it. Fuck 3D. No one cares about 3D,
I mean, it did cool things with the 3D. I liked how the mask came about. You had that goofball Shelley, who actually is now, believe it or not, he's an entertainment lawyer. Oh, yeah. And he's been talking a lot on Twitter about the legalities going on with the Friday the 13th franchise, because there's an ongoing issue with the rights. So the guy who wrote the movie, what the fuck is his name?
Cocksucker Jones.
No, that was the guy who directed Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Sean S. Cunningham directed the first movie, and he sort of has kept the rights for a long time. Victor Miller was the guy who wrote the first movie under contract to Sean S. Cunningham. So these two people now are fighting in court, one's trying to keep the rights and one's trying to get the rights for the first time, because he was only paid for writing the first movie. He hadn't made any royalties or anything other than for that first movie. Yeah. But he wrote all the characters, including the name Jason. But he only wrote the name Jason as the kid in the lake, who came out at the end of the movie, and as Pamela Voorhees' son. He didn't picture Jason as the hulking monster who kills kids.
Right, so like, how much did he really, like, there wouldn't be Jason without him, but technically he kind of didn't. The modern Jason was not his creation.
Right. So Shelley got the mask, and he wore it trying to scare someone, because that was his thing, scaring people and trying to be funny and whatever. And Jason killed his ass real hard and then took that mask.
Just a quick little side amble, which again, is probably why this podcast will end up longer than we think. But just about that situation, about the original writer and stuff, I just saw this big Twitter thread by I can't remember the guy's name, but the dude who has directed the last couple Mission Impossible movies, something
I don't know who
Macquarie.
that is.
But he wrote this really good thing because everyone talks about how in Hollywood the writers are the bottom of the barrel. You know, like they get no respect, they have no control over anything. Like everyone just fucks them basically.
Yeah.
And this Macquarie guy was like, the reason this happens is because you're letting yourself get fucked. Like if you just write a script and sell it and just hope that everything works out and hope someone else looks after it, they're not going to look after it.
I
They're
remember
gonna,
that.
Yeah, they're not going to do it. They're going to do whatever they want, and you're not going to get shit. So basically, his recommendation was like, if you want to get into screenwriting, don't come in meek like a little lamb, like, oh, please buy my script, oh, please, like, control it, like, keep it. Do like what Sylvester Stallone did, like. The only way we're making Rambo is if I direct, or Rambo.
Rocky.
The only way we're making Rocky is if I direct Rocky, and otherwise we're not making it.
Or star in it. I don't remember if he directed it, but he definitely starred in it.
Yeah, and it's just like that Macquarie dude's right. It's like if you get treated like a little bitch, it's because you're allowing yourself to be treated like a little bitch.
Right.
You know? And I always need to read because I'm like, yeah, like that's good advice. Like if I ever get a script done, I can't just sell it and cross my fingers. Like I got to be more involved and I got to be willing to like stick with it or else I'm just going to get fucked. And yeah, that's what happened to poor Victor Miller or whatever the fuck his name was.
Yeah, Victor Miller. So anyway, Friday the 13th Part 3 also had that really kind of lame gang who were sort of terrorizing the kids who went up to that camp, or not the camp, but it was like a farmhouse for the weekend so that the girlfriend could kind of reconnect with her boyfriend or whatever.
And the kills I always think of that one, due to the magic of 3D, is there's the clap in the head and the eyeball pops out.
Yeah.
And the spear gun. Like a lot of shooting at the screen type shit going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there weren't very many memorable kills in that one either.
Well, that's what's weird about 3D too, is like once you're outside of 3D, then it's just awkward. It's like, why are there all these shots directly at the camera?
So how do we do this now?
So now, okay, our current list as it stands is part 2, followed by part 1. So we'll start at the bottom. So is Friday the 13th 3 better than part 1?
Yes, in that it gave Jason his mask.
Yeah, I can't really argue with that. So now is Friday the 13th part 3 better than part 2?
No.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. So we'll put it in there. Because, yeah, the mask is the shit, but we'll have plenty of mask to come. And, yeah, besides that, like, iconic shit. Yeah, 2 just was... I really do like 2. 2 is really cool.
Yeah, 2 was good.
Like, it'd be nice if they did another remake, which I'm sure they will. It would almost be cool just to do a remake of 2. Like, if you want to get... Like, it would be commercial suicide not to have the fucking mask, but it would be... That's what I would pitch. Like, let's just put the bag on his head again. I love that bag. Although I guess he had the bag on the head, right?
Yeah, he did in the 2009 remake.
Yeah, so I guess whatever. Fuck me. Right, so now, heavy hitter. Number 4.
Oh, man.
Again, like, the only problem with number 4 is... Everyone talks too much about number 4, but it is the best.
Here's the thing about number 4. Number 4 had a really great cast. It was very well written. Jason was at probably his most violent. There were a lot of kills in that movie. A lot of them were very creative. Like, you know, the guy who got his face mashed and crushed in the wall in the shower, stuff like that.
And as far as cast, like, you got those cool little things of like Kevin Bacon in the first one and whatnot, but this one had not only little Corey Feldman, but it also had fucking McFly. What's his goddamn name?
Oh, yeah, Crispin Glover.
Yeah, like, as far as just the associated cast, I think 4 is also my favorite because it just had awesome people in it.
And honestly, it had my favorite Jason as well, which I mentioned his name before, is Ted White. You know, he was a stunt actor. He did a bunch of stuff. He was, you know, big, but he wasn't over big. Like, I think Kane Hodder as Jason was too big, but he wasn't also a shrimp. So he had that nice sort of middle ground. He was beefy, but not too beefy, and he had really good mannerisms, like a heavy breathing and stuff like that really lent to his portrayal of Jason. The mask in that Jason Friday the 13th was also my favorite as well. It just looked really cool. It had the axe wound from that was the result of part 3 at the end. What the fuck?
Well, it's cool too because like number 4, if I remember right from that Crystal Lake Memories, the like epic documentary they did, which if anybody's into Friday the 13th and hasn't seen that shit, it's fucking worth it. It's like 8 hours long, and it's so good.
It's literally 7.5 hours long, but it is worth every single minute.
Yeah, you just like can't stop watching it. It's so good. And Yeah, because like 2, 3, and 4 all kind of happened back to back to back, pretty much, and they really did intend like this. We really are stopping now. 4 is really going to be the last one.
They even brought Tom Savini back because Tom Savini did the special effects for, I believe, the first 2 movies, and then he didn't do the third one. But then he was like, well, if this is going to be the end of this character, I'm going to be the one to take him out, with my special effects or whatever.
And the fact that they made it so credible that little Corey Feldman could kill Jason, like on the face of it, if you just told me that, I'd be like, well, that must suck. But they like pulled it off. It kind of worked. Where basically he just like wore his, because he's big into monster masks. Like little Corey Feldman's kind of a little creepo. So he's got this creepy monster face that he wears that, similar to in part 2 wearing the mom sweater, it like freaks Jason out for a minute. He's like, what? That kid looks kind of like me. What's going on?
All he did was shave his head and put on a little pair of shorts.
Oh yeah, he wasn't even wearing the mask. He just, shaved his head or whatever. And basically just like Jason falls, his head falls on a big machete and Corey Feldman hacks him to death, and I'm like, yeah, okay, fuck, he's dead. Nice work, Feldman.
Yeah, no, and Friday the 13th 4 is my undeniable favorite of the franchise, but that doesn't mean it's going to end up our victor. We'll see how that works, because
I think there's a good chance, though.
Yeah, probably. I mean, discussing it is gonna see where this kind of goes, I guess. But already in judging, I would put Friday the 13th Part 4 above all of the aforementioned movies.
Yeah, definitely. So we got number 1, number 3, number 2, and then number 4. Anything else you want to say about 4? Should we move on to 5?
Part 4 rules.
Yeah, Part 4 rules. What else? What else do you need to know? If by some weird, I don't know who would be listening to this that hasn't seen all these, but you should definitely go watch 4. You should watch 2, you should watch 4. Just watch them all. What the fuck? Like your life's important. Just do it. We wasted our lives watching these movies. You can too.
Many, many times. I've seen these movies so many times. It's unbelievable.
So now, Part 5, if you want our long-form thoughts on Part 5, we did a commentary track for it on this very channel/podcast, wherever you happen to be listening to this. But yeah, 5, highly maligned because it's, Jason died in 4, and it makes way more sense when you watch that documentary, and they're just talking about it from the perspective of trying to kind of reboot the franchise. They don't want to just bring Jason back to life. They felt like that would be a cheat, but it turns out they fucked up because everybody wanted Jason to come back to life, and like fans were upset that there was no Jason. But the movie, if you can get past that, it's a really awesome movie.
Like if you put any mask other than a Jason mask on the killer in this movie, totally awesome. Like it would have been an amazing slasher movie on its own.
Yeah.
But as far as the killer not being Jason, you don't fucking know that until the very end of the movie.
And it really does harken back a little to the first one, where the first one was, a woman whose son died and now she's freaking out. This was like a smaller version of that same story. This paramedic guy sees his son die and then he starts killing people. Yeah. And it's just a way less... It's not a very well-developed situation. It is pretty lame.
His idiot retard son, Joey.
Yeah, who kind of deserved to die.
He was a fucking annoying little prick and got hacked up with an axe at the beginning of the movie.
But I think it's so interesting, too, where, like, 5, when we rewatched it, we're like, man, like, this is a sort of extra level of violence and nudity and just, like, everything you expect from an 80s horror movie, but a little further. And in that documentary, it was funny when they were talking about the gradations. Like, you'd think a horror movie, like, all bets are off, let's just do crazy shit, but it's not really like that. Like everything is carefully gauged, because people were even saying about 5 that they felt it was like a little sleazy. How the guy who directed it was like kind of a porny type dude, and he was just making it kind of greasy and more titty filled and a little too violent. And it's funny that horror movie producers would talk that way about a horror movie, but they're right, and that's what makes it so cool, is like it's a harsh ass film.
I really like Part 5 an awful lot. I think it's well done. I think it's very creative, and I don't give a shit. I would totally buy the fact that someone kind of went a little bit fucking crazy and, was like, well, fuck, I'm just going to put on this mask then, and everyone's scared of this killer anyway, so I'm going to kind of take up the mantle and be crazy and kill people. Like, fuck it.
I wonder if I guess it wasn't going to work no matter what, just because it didn't have Jason in it, but it has that connection because the character of Tommy Jarvis is still in it. I wonder if they just did a totally clean break and they're just like, this is not anything to do with the old ones, but I guess that wouldn't have worked either. But I guess the weird thing about this movie is, yeah, it's like we got a lot more respect for it than the average person. And there's a lot to like. However, when it comes time to rank it against the other ones, that does get a little tricky because it's like, so let's just start at the bottom. Friday the 13th Part 1. Is 5 better than 1?
Yes.
Yeah, like I guess so. One is way more like classic. One is way more historically significant. But yeah, just as a movie, yeah, I think I agree. I think 5 is better than 1. So moving up the chain, is 5 better than 3?
Yes.
Okay, pitch me on it. Why why do you think 5 is better than 3?
Because of all the reasons that I've already mentioned, where if you put any other mask on the killer, this would have been an amazing slasher movie.
Right.
It still would have held up. It still would have been this movie if they had called the character like Dave the Killer, wearing a Kermit the Frog mask, goes crazy and starts killing people in the exact same style, just different mask. You would fucking love that movie, and they would have been able to build a franchise off that on its own.
And I think, you know what, I'm going to go with you, and I think the reason why is because when I think of 5, I remember the fucking annoying fucking half-retarded kid with the chocolate bar. I remember the crazy angry axe dude who fucking axed him. Yeah. I remember 80s dancing chick, even though this movie takes place years later, so it would technically be the 90s. Like, I remember all these things, where for 3... I don't remember shit. I just remember the mask, So for that reason, yeah, I think so. But then, is 5 better than Part 2?
No.
Yeah, I agree. So this is where 5 lays. 5, you did good, 5. You made it further up the list than a lot of people would have put you, I think.
Yeah, a lot of people would have put it pretty close to the bottom, I think.
Yeah, if not the bottom. So our current standing is Part 4, Part 2, Part 5, Part 3, and Part 1. So... Part 6, Jason Lives. This is where they're like, oh shit, everyone's angry at us. We fucked up. Like, let's just bring Jason back to life. Lightning bolt. Ah.
Let's make a music video, basically, because that's really what it is. It's the late 80s hair metal video starring Jason Voorhees.
And this was probably the peak also of Jason just as a pop culture thing, where it was as much like a kid thing as it was an adult thing. And it's like, if there was ever going to be a cartoon, this is when they would have started the cartoon. But I got to admit, with 6, similar to 3, I just have a hard time conjuring up memories of it. I remember Jason coming back to life very clearly. And then after that, it's a bit of a blur. I remember a police station. And I think that's it.
Whereas I remember it extremely clearly because it was the first Friday the 13th movie I ever saw.
Oh, yeah, that'll stick with you.
My grandparents had rented or had a beta player. They recorded it off of some fucking movie network. And when they got a VCR, they passed their beta player down to my mom and my family. And, they had all these tapes, and one of them had Friday the 13th 6 written on it, and my mom put that on top of a really tall buffet and hutch that she had, and she was like, don't get that tape and watch it. So
Raymond, if you watch this, your fucking dick will fall off.
Right. So she was basically like, don't watch this. But the minute she was out the door, I grabbed that tape and watched it. It was the first Friday the 13th movie I ever saw. How Jason was brought back to life was great. You had Tommy Jarvis again, this time played by Tom Matthews, who was in like Return of the Living Dead, stuff like that. And you had the soundtrack that had 2 songs by Alice Cooper.
Wait, which one? Or am I still thinking of 5? Which one was those damn enchiladas?
That was 5. That was Demon.
I don't remember 6 at all. Like, it's so weird. I gotta watch it.
So basically what happens is Tommy Jarvis and a buddy of his are either escaped from or recently get out of like an asylum sort of thing, like the halfway house or whatever the fuck it was. They go to where Jason is buried in the grave in the cemetery near Crystal Lake,
because he had the dream that this could happen, so he's like, I better go make that happen.
So
fucking idiot.
Jason comes out, he goes a little bit crazy and starts stabbing Jason's corpse after they unearth the casket and whatever.
Right, yeah, because he wanted to prove Jason was dead to himself.
Exactly. So he's stabbing it with one of the poles from the cemetery fence, and lightning hits it, and it starts raining, so they can't light him on fire with gasoline. And Jason comes out, punches it through his buddy, and hilarity ensues. Let's get the sheriff, whose daughter is, the stereotypical pretty girl from the late 80s. She's got the blonde hair, a little bit teased out or whatever, the Camaro. Anyway, long and short of it is, it is like a rock video. Everyone talks about how Rob Zombie's movies are like a long rock video. That's what this was, but only starring Jason. It was really well done. Although it was violent, I found it less violent than earlier entries in the movie, like part 4 and back, or part 5 and back, rather. And there was no nudity in it. So it was really watered down, but it's what made people really kind of buy Jason. It was sort of like, it's like a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, but with Jason, basically.
Yeah, and it never got like Nightmare on Elm Street just got so silly with like Fat Boys songs and stuff.
And so popular, and it got popular based off of specific entries.
Oh yeah, and isn't 6 2? He's back, the man
That's
behind
it, yeah.
the mask, the Alice Cooper song.
Right.
Yeah, and I always kind of liked about 6 and 7 especially, but I guess from here on in is there is that like 5 is the break point where 1 through 4 are unlikely but possible. It could be possible that some weird brain damaged kid who half drowned grew up in the woods and turned into this wacko and he kills all these people and he's just a really hard guy to kill. Where after 5, we're clearly in supernatural territory at this point. But I like that too. Actually, I kind of prefer that version of Jason where it's just, hey, a lightning bolt. He's just coming back over and over. Fuck
Once
you.
6 hits, Jason is a zombie, basically.
Yeah, and it ties in later. I mean, when we talk about 10 and stuff, like this is just how Jason is now. This is just what he is, and yeah, I buy it. I don't know, fuck it, sure.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was a good first one to see. Like, I mean, it's
It
a
really
great
was, yeah.
it's a great entry point. I mean, he comes fucking to life from his grave, and for some reason, I just buy it. I don't know why. Like a lightning bolt, like yeah, all right, fine, fuck it. But because my memory for this one sucks so bad, I'm gonna totally leave it up to you where it goes in the listing. So let's do our fucking rundown. We'll start at the bottom.
Okay.
Is Jason 6 better than Jason 1?
Yes.
Is Jason 6 better than Jason 3?
Yes.
Right? Is Jason 6 better than Jason 5?
No.
Okay, well, this is getting a little, again, a controversial opinion. So, again, does it just come down to the hardcore nature of 5 as opposed to the slickness of 6?
Well, part 6 was slick and like a really good entry. Part 5 had all the things that make a slasher movie a slasher movie.
Yeah, Jason 6, like, it is kind of like baby's first slasher.
Yeah, kind of, yeah, because I mean, part 5 was graphic violence, and they even had to cut out a bunch of it in order to get it to where it was, which was still really graphically violent. And part 6 has no nudity, and the violence, while there, is not as much or as good.
Yeah, so with 6, I wonder if you could, because like there's that kind of flow of horror movies where in the 70s they were fucking insane, and then for the 80s they were starting insane, but by the 90s, like the 90s was a real low ebb in a lot of ways for horror movies. So maybe this is like we're seeing that happen through Jason, of like the movies are getting less severe and less intense, and they're just getting us ready for I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah, so that's why I don't put 6 above 5.
Yeah, so again, I do think that's what makes us the Prison Waltz, baby. Controversial opinions. Like I think very few people would go with that, but that's where we're at. So we got 4, 2, 5, 6, 3, 1. So part 7. 7 is a weird one where I feel like it's probably, I think I like it more than it deserves, kind of. Like it's probably not really that good with like the Carrie chick with her psychic powers and shit, but I just have fond memories of it, of just this chick fighting Jason. It just was cool.
So here's the thing about Part 7. Part 7 was directed by a guy named Carl Buechler. And Carl Buechler died last year or so. He got cancer, but of course, he hadn't made enough money to kind of in his career to kind of really support himself through even that. So they had like a GoFundMe account for him for expenses for treatments and stuff like that. And I donated to that because the guy gave us Friday the 13th 7, which I love it. It's a good movie. Right. But Carl Buechler was also very vocal in that Paramount really interfered with the creation of that movie. So it wasn't as he intended it. It was, as he directed it, far more violent, a lot more graphic. There was nudity, there was all that stuff. But the studio basically said, no, this isn't how this is going to be. What Friday 7 did give us, though, was the introduction of Kane Hodder as Jason. And he definitely had one of the best looks, too. You know, Jason all decomposed. You could see his ribs through his clothes and, like, the actual bones and stuff like that. And the Jason under the mask, like his face under that was really cool too. So very animated, but lots of good practical effects and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was really surprised to realize, because Kane Hodder, just for whatever reason, one of those names that everyone who's into horror movies knows Kane Hodder. There's a band called Kane Hodder. When you think of Jason, the first name you think is Kane Hodder. When he wasn't in Freddy vs. Jason, people were like, where's fucking Kane Hodder? So I was pretty surprised when I realized he didn't show up until 7. Like, it was pretty late in the run, really.
He played Jason more than anyone else, because he played Jason in 7, 8, Jason Goes to Hell, and Jason X.
Yeah, so it's interesting that I'm still surprised that he's the name that caught on so much, because I wouldn't really, he wasn't necessarily there for the best run of Jason.
No, and sadly, I mean, he gave Jason the personality that everyone loves, you know, the heavy breathing, the turning his head in whatever direction it is he's going to be walking before he moves into that direction. You know, these emotes that Jason does that no one had done before or has been able to really do properly since. So he gave Jason the personality that people liked.
Right.
But unfortunately, that meant that he was also in the worst Friday the 13th movies, in my opinion.
Right.
Like, they weren't good. I mean, they were good, but they weren't as good.
Right. Well, like with 7, for instance, I think I really like the setup of 7, because we're already very clearly in voodoo land, you know, of like, okay, Jason is just coming back to life now. And I liked this explanation way better than the lightning bolt, like that this chick has telekinetic powers. Yeah, so she's the one. He's in the lake. He's chained up at the bottom of the lake. He's just floating there, and it's her mental energy that wakes him up and brings him back.
Right.
Like, if I'm willing to buy the lightning bolt, this is way better than that. Like, that's just a way better explanation. And even now, like, if you go back a couple episodes to our episode where we talked about horror movie ideas, so the idea of just writing our own Jason type movie, of just like, fuck it, we'll just put a different mask on, call him something else. But the initial setup is a dude at the bottom of a lake who gets reanimated, totally taken from 7. Like, in a way, this is my favorite Jason. Like, what gets Jason back into the fucking fray is part 7. I just love that idea of him floating in the lake and just waiting to come out and fucking kill you.
Yeah, 7 was really good. I enjoyed it a lot. So, what do we got here?
Yeah, so let's see. Okay, so again, we'll start at the bottom. So, bottom of the list is still part 1. So, Friday the 13th, part 7. Is it better than part 1?
I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, I agree. So then, is it better than part 3?
No.
Yeah, maybe not, right? Because 7 is, like, now we're getting, 3 is still in the robust early days when things were really good in general. Even the less good ones are real good. Right. Where, yeah, like 7, we're only 1 away from 8. Things are about to fall apart. The wheels are coming off of this franchise. Yeah, because I guess, again, I think that's like, it's a little bit of a tough call, but it would definitely not be better than 6. So yeah, it's either, is it above or below 3? And yeah, 3 has the mask. 3 has a lot of iconic shit. 7, it is silly. It's like, let's just bring in a telekinetic woman. Yeah, I guess if you wanted to look at it that way. Like, I have a lot of nostalgia for it, and I like it. But on the face of it, it's like a pretty desperate Hail Mary pass to just bring in. There's no evidence that there should be telekinesis in this world. And they just bring in this chick.
Right. And I mean, just based on how the series ends up as opposed to what happened earlier on, 7 is good, but it can't beat.
Like the purity. 3 is still just the pure stuff.
Exactly.
Where 7, yeah, in its own weird way, 7 is like... Hey, we're actually just watching a little clip from 7 right now of hitting the fucking the
sleeping bag.
That is classic, and I love when she blasts him back through the stairs of the house. But 7 in its own way is almost like 5 in the sense that it is its own little dead end.
Yeah.
This one little thing happened and it never went anywhere ever again. So 7 is better than 1, but not better than 3. So now, speaking of the wheels falling off, I mean, 8 really is like to me, 8, I mean, it's called Jason Takes Manhattan for one thing. Like, it's already immediately fucking stupid. But this is really the height of Jason as a pop culture little kid nonsense thing.
Yeah, I remember seeing the commercials for this on television as a kid, and this was around the time where my mom was sending my brother and I to camp for 2 weeks out of the summer every year. So this movie came out, but my mom had sent us to camp, and I was really, like, I was just starting to get into horror movies and stuff like that. So I knew this movie was coming out, and I knew that it probably wouldn't be in the theater for very long. So I was a little bit butthurt as a kid that I was going to camp instead of going to see Jason.
Right.
But, I mean, realistically, I was a kid. I wasn't going to see Jason, so I was butthurt for no reason.
And Jason 8 was like, yeah, I eventually saw it on VHS. And again, like, yeah, like the series was so toothless that, I mean, my mom was real easy. My family didn't really care what I did. Like, I watched Friday the 13th Part 1 with my mom. I think that was the first one I saw. But, like, it was no question, like, yeah, let's just go rent it. We all just watched it as a family or whatever. And I mean, I have bad taste now, but I had terrible taste as a kid. I had no idea what was good and what was bad. And even back then, I was like, I don't know, he just, like, punched the head off that boxer guy. It's funny, but I feel like maybe this is a bad movie. and just Jason being in New York, it's slightly an interesting concept, kind of. But even to make it happen, suddenly Crystal Lake's not a lake. There's just a fucking boat that attaches, the waterway attaches to New York somehow. What the fuck is even happening? Like, they really had to twist themselves to make this stupid movie happen.
Yeah, it was definitely just not good.
And the ending too was it's like, if you ever played the game, anyone out there, Monkey Island 2, it had this weird ending where the characters turn into little kids and they never explain it, and then they never got to make a sequel. Same shit here. Jason is down in the sewers, some Ninja Turtle goop gets on him, he turns into a little kid, and they never follow up on it, because what the fuck was that?
It feels like the movie was 2 stories, and they were like, yeah, we don't want to make 2 movies out of this, so we're going to make 1 movie, because realistically, they could have done, which, I mean, basically they did, the majority of it was on that fucking boat. They could have done the boat movie, and then the end of the movie comes, and then they could have done the Manhattan part if they really, really felt like they had to.
Yeah, because it's not even, I guess it is only kind of toward the end, right, that he gets there?
Yeah, he's not even in Manhattan for, I'd probably say a half hour. He's not in. So like 2/3 of the movie is on a boat.
And it's just tiresome in general how everything is New York with Americans. They just love it. Every fucking dumb crime show, every lawyer show, every movie, everything's New York. Jason doesn't need to be in New York. Like, come on.
It's lazy. It's a lazy movie. While I like it because it's part of the pantheon and part of the series that I love, because it's definitely my favorite franchise as far as horror goes, it's just not up there for me.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I think I may predict we may have a new bottom ranking, because I was thinking, like, even just as a stupid, fun movie to put on and just laugh at how dumb it is, I don't even really feel like Jason 8 accomplishes that, because, like, I wouldn't want to watch it right now. I wouldn't just put it on as just a fun, goofy time.
No.
So, yeah, I think, is it better or worse than Part 1?
It's definitely worse.
Yep, so we got a new bottom. You made it Part 1. It was almost making Part 1 look bad, but it's just that Part 1.
And I do love Part 1.
Yeah, me too.
But I love the series so much as a whole that, you know, there's got to be a lower ranking, you know. I mean, and it's really hard for Pamela Voorhees to compete with the behemoth that is her son Jason.
Yeah, like, that's, if anything, it's actually a good sign for this franchise that we had to get all the way to the end before there was one worse than Part 1. Like, they were all kind of moving on up. Everything was kind of getting better and better, and, like, building on, because, yeah, number 1, it's almost just like a workman, like, it's just a solid, okay movie, and they just kept getting cooler and weirder and doing different stuff.
Right.
And then with 8, they finally failed, and now there's still other movies to talk about, but really, to me, in my head, this is always really the end. Like, everything after this is just some weird bonus material involving Jason, but none of them feel like...
Honestly, 1 through 7 are amazing.
Yeah.
1 through 7 are all really good fucking horror movies. Everything after 7 just seems... All it is a cash grab to me. Actually, with an exception, and we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get there. But, so yeah, we're like, wow, what could be worse than 8? But the 90s was a bad time for Jason. The whole decade.
It sure
was.
was.
Just shit. Because, I mean, there was really just Jason Goes to Hell, right? In like 93. And what the fuck is that? Like, I don't think anyone on earth wasn't disappointed by that movie.
I liked it when it came out, though. I really did. I mean, young, whatever. Rented it on VHS as soon as I could.
I mean, I liked the opening. I loved the opening where they take Jason out with his fucking, like, everyone's just got all these machine guns and they're shooting him. And I was like, all right, let's do it. This is going to be great. And I loved the ending where Freddy's hand pulls the mask down.
Which was Kane Hodder's hand as well.
Oh, nice. But everything in the middle, I was not a big fan of.
Yeah.
Because, talking about Jason 5 and Jason not being in it, I mean, this one is like perverse because I guess Jason is in it technically, but it's like the spirit of Jason. And it's just like, who the fuck thought this was a good idea?
They really tried with this movie to do something. I mean, I can see what they were trying to do. They were trying to kind of reinvent the mythos of the Jason character, but they tried to make it too overcomplicated. The first 7 movies really established that the character was essentially a mongoloid, after part 6 mongoloid zombie, whose mom went nuts and he saw her die, and then he started killing teenagers as revenge, like a vengeance thing. But they tried to go with it was like this fucking demon, and no matter where the demon is, that's who Jason is, and I just didn't buy it.
Well, there's definitely distinctly different sort of fields of horror movie villain, where what I always liked about early Jason and like Michael Myers is it's the sort of down to earth, grounded type. If you can just get away from this guy, you'll be okay. And then on the other end is Evil Dead, where it's like, you open the book, you said the words, it doesn't matter what you do now. Nothing you can do is going to stop this because it's just insane.
Right.
And it's like Jason slowly turned from the Michael Myers grounded thing into the Evil Dead style, what the fuck is even happening anymore, demonic thing. And it's not a good fit for him.
Yeah, so I mean it's pretty low on the rankings for the series as a whole, in my opinion.
I do always kind of like, though, just in my own little like headcanon that I made up of Jason progressing from a relatively normal, if not super powerful guy to a more supernatural guy, is I like the idea that it's like maybe the Lord of Death or whatever fucking, spiritual demon shit is happening in the world. It's like they noticed him. They're like, did you see how many fucking camp counselors that guy killed? He's pretty awesome. Let's give him some powers. Like, that's never in the movies, but I like to think of it that way. So 9 again, just because I mean, it's that same problem as 5, as it's just really not a Jason movie, except now it's aggressively not a Jason movie, and I don't know that there's really all that much going on in it to really. I mean, I guess it's really the battle of the bottom right now. Is Jason 9 better than Jason 8?
Yes.
You think so?
I do. If for no other reason than for that sweet tent kill.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, that's true. And that was another, it's interesting, too. That's one thing that's so great about that documentary is how all the way from the 80s up to the 90s, all the way through, basically, they're like, oh, yeah, it was good, but it was going to be even better. And they show you, like, the test footage and stuff of what they wanted to do. Like, that was going to be even more brutal. But yeah, I guess that's okay, because it's not like, again, I just haven't watched Jason 9 probably since the mid-90s. I don't really remember it that well. I don't know if I would put it above 8, but I can't muster up an argument, because it's 8. Who gives a shit? 8 sucks, 9 sucks. Why bother going out of my way to debate about which sucky one is less sucky?
Well, I mean, it's actually pretty easy. So part 8 had the great kill with the guitar, which you didn't actually see. You just see him swing the guitar, and then you have the dead chick who was actually a pretty popular actress at the time, Tia Carrere.
Oh, right.
So
the Ballroom Blitz.
Right. So he smacks her with that. She dies. But short of that, there wasn't really anything creative about it. You had the Creighton Duke character who broke the fingers of the character that John D. LeMay played in The Cell for information, because he was trying to figure out, how to kill Jason and what the mythos actually was. I mean, yeah, it was convoluted, but it was cool to see, someone get their fingers broken. And then there was that sweet sweet tent kill. And the beginning scene too, as well, where Jason's stalking what we find out is an FBI agent. You know, you had that long drawn out scene that was pretty suspenseful.
Yeah, that opening scene was really good, and I do have to admit, maybe I should give that one another shot sometime, because in that Crystal Lake Memories documentary, they spent a pretty long time interviewing the guy who directed 9, and he seemed on the ball. He seemed to know what he was talking about. Like, he just got a weird assignment. It's like, hey, guess what? You get to make a Jason movie at the very fucking nadir of Jason, like, where it's never been less successful, never been less popular. We've never had less faith in it, so let's just make this weird movie that is all fucked up. So then it was a long time after that there was no Jason movies, which is so weird because, you know, we grew up in the fucking 80s, man. Like, every goddamn year.
The next one wasn't until 2002.
Now, Jason X, we might disagree a bit here on this one because I don't know that we've ever talked about it all that much. But I actually fucking love Jason X.
Really?
Yeah, like, I was all excited when it was coming out. I was still working at the comic shop. And yeah, like, I did a marathon where I watched 2 through 7. I didn't watch the whole thing. But I watched all those just to get ready for Jason X. But it was a case where I really didn't have big expectations, because I remember it was initially called Jason 2000 and they delayed it, and thank God they changed the name, because I hate that shit, like Dracula 2000. Anything with 2000 in the title, like, who could be that dumb? And me and Matt went to see it, so it helps to have really low expectations. But it's fully a comedy. It's absolutely a comedy. So if that doesn't work for you, you're gonna hate this movie. But it hit us like just right.
Let's talk about that for a few minutes, like about the movie as a whole. See, the first 10 minutes of that movie were amazing.
Right.
Like, you can buy that some government agency got a hold of Jason somehow, and they were trying to figure out how he kept regenerating and whatever, and testing on him. And you had what's his name? Not Lynch. I always mistake David Lynch and
Cronenberg.
David Cronenberg. David Cronenberg was in it as one of the doctors in the movie, and he got killed in a sweet way. The look for Jason was really good in that movie too. Like, in the first 10 minutes was really great. If they had continued the movie on the same stretch, like Jason's escaping from this facility, ends up back in Crystal Lake, hilarity ensues, that would have been amazing. It would have been one of the better flicks, probably as good as 5. But they didn't do that. Instead, what they did was they put Jason in fucking space.
Yeah, which he was even late to the party on that one. Leprechaun had already been to space. It's like everyone's got to go to space eventually. Hellraiser, was he in space at that point? When did Bloodlines come out?
So the first 10 minutes of that movie alone were enough to put it a little bit higher on the list for me.
Well, I think it's a case of, it's like there hasn't been a movie in forever. No studio has faith that they can make money on a Friday the 13th movie. So the only way this movie got greenlit was something stupid. Somebody pitched Jason in space, and some money guy was like, haha, that's fucking stupid and dumb. Like, yeah, okay, we'll greenlight that. So it's like they were stuck with this bad concept. We got no choice. Jason in space is the only thing they'll give us money to make. So we got to do the best we can with Jason in space. And I think when you look at it that way, I really think they did as good of a Jason in space movie as you could do. Because also, you can't do Jason in space serious. It's got to be a joke. And I really think the jokes were funny in it. Of just like, they get to this, so they cryogenically freeze Jason, and then we cut to the future, and Jason comes out, and this chick who from the past also gets thawed out, and she's trying to explain to them, like, don't thaw this guy. It's like he's Jason, he's evil. You never heard of this shit, and basically it's just a series of goofy space kills where he like freezes the one chick's face with the like cryogenic
the
freezing
Freon
stuff,
or whatever.
Yeah, and then smashes her face, and
that was really cool.
Like a dude falls on a big screw and just slowly spins as he goes down the screw, and yeah, like they go into the VR thing, and to try to distract Jason, they send him he's in a VR room, so they send him back to Camp Crystal Lake, and there's these two like bimbos that come over and take off their tops, and it's basically like Jason 7 again, where it just cuts to. They get in like they take off their tops, they get into their sleeping bags, and they're like, come hang out with us. Ah. And then it just cuts to him just smashing the bag against the tree again. Yeah. But I got to admit, me and Matt were dying laughing. I don't know that anyone else in that theater was enjoying that movie. It might have just been
I saw it in the
us.
theater as well.
Yeah, do you remember the vibe? Like, because I don't think it was like a big
No,
hit.
'cause I fell asleep.
Man, yeah. And I guess the part I liked the least was there's like this android chick. That part was pretty bad. She was pretty lame. She's from Andromeda or some show, and she fucking starts like shooting missiles at Jason and is taking him out pretty well. So the nanotechnology machine on the ship combined with his natural healing, they go together, and the ship tries to fix him and turns him into Uber Jason.
Which is when it kind of lost me, to be honest.
Yeah, I didn't hate the concept. Like, you're already in space, so why not? But I just didn't like how he looked. And to me, yeah, that was a little lame. But yeah, it's like, it's weird because, like, I don't have a fucking leg to stand on. I don't know how to defend Jason in space, but I really did like it. Like,
All right, well, where do you got it?
okay, well, yeah, saying that though, we're still talking the bottom. We're still battling for the bottom.
Yeah.
So basically, 8, 9, and 1 are the bottom. And I can't in good conscience put it above 1, because I mean, 1
No.
is a classic.
100% not.
But personally, I would put it above 8 and 9, because I had a really fun time with that stupid movie.
I could buy it being above 8.
But yeah, not above 9. That's fair, because again, I can't really fight for it, of just like,
Yeah, I think I would put it above 8, but not above 9, because 9 still, is on Earth and has some really sweet kills.
yeah, it really is. It's totally a matter of taste too, because especially I feel like the other movies, it's less subjective, but I mean, nothing is more subjective than comedy. Like, if you laugh at it, that's great, but if you don't laugh, it's just the worst.
Yeah.
And it is like, it's corny. Like, it is, but I just, again, because I knew it was originally called Jason 2000 and it's Jason in space, like, a lot of it is my expectations where they were so low.
Yeah.
That then when I was like, oh, actually, some of this is kind of clever. And so at the very end, Jason is hurtling through the atmosphere. He's, I don't remember exactly. I assume he killed everybody. And now he's Uber Jason. He's extra unstoppable. So he's hurtling through space down toward a planet. And he's like a comet, but he's not going to die. He's going to survive. And I love the ending so much where it's a new Earth. It's Earth 2 or whatever, because the old Earth got ruined. And it's just these teens next to a lake, beautiful Earth 2. And they see this like shooting star thing. And they're like, whoa, cool. What's that? Let's go check it out. And it's like, you just know Jason's just going to start murdering on this other planet.
Yeah.
And they never went anywhere with that. But then, I still, to this day, I haven't read these. I got to get them. I should look them up on Amazon or something. I was like, oh, like, I know I'm the only one on the earth who liked this movie this much, but I wish they had followed up on this, because it's so awesome that this new Earth. But there actually are novels that happen after Jason X. Like, it continues in novel form.
Yeah.
And that's just insane. Like, we've talked before about how stupid it is that there's the Child's Play 3 novel, and there's just all these novels, all this stupid shit. Like, why did they make novels of all these books? I can't think of one more obscure and more pointless, and that I don't know who the fuck it was made for or whoever read it, than Jason X Continued. But
Yeah.
they did it. That exists. But yeah, now that I've reminded myself about that, I'm gonna order those fucking shits, and I'm gonna read them. I'll report back. We can do Jason X book reports.
So Jason X above.
Above 8, but below 9.
Yeah, I'm agreeable with that.
Way at the bottom. Because, yeah, personally, I put it above 9, but I mean, again, why? Who cares? Like, it's fine. I'm not going to fucking go to bat for Jason X. So then it was less of a break before Freddy versus Jason. Still a little while. It still took a few years, but that wasn't too bad of a wait for a new Jason movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, Freddy versus Jason, it's like, I mean, you could nitpick it. It had a very convoluted plot that was a little hard to follow, and like a lot of exposition of these kids explaining, well, no, you see, what happened is Freddy's in your dreams, and people aren't scared of him anymore, so he called Jason in to go kill people to make them scared on Elm Street so that he could regain power, and then he could be powerful again. But then he got mad because Jason was killing people before Freddy had a chance to kill him. And it's like,
It's just dumb and stupid.
but on the other hand, I was a little impressed that they figured it out at all. That they could figure out any kind of an explanation for how this could happen.
I remember being a fucking dipshit kid, and that was sort of the locker talk, who would win, Freddy or Jason? Who would win? And I always thought Jason would win myself. But as I get older and, more intelligent, I thought, well, that couldn't actually happen in the first place, because Freddy kills people in his dreams and attacks people in his dreams, and it's not like Jason's, having catnaps. He's either dead or alive.
Yeah. So it really, you got to have the extra parameter of if it's just a big guy with a machete versus a smaller guy with the glove hands, Jason's going to win. But yeah, you get into all the dream shit, and then it's like, well, fuck, I don't know. Like, which sadly is kind of what happened in that movie. It's really not a satisfying conclusion, but again, I don't think that they could. Like, they kind of set it up that Jason won, quote unquote, but Freddy's decapitated head winks at the camera. You know, it's like nobody won.
I mean, it had a decent enough cast. I mean, you had Catherine Isabelle in it from Ginger Snaps. You had Lachlan Monroe from like Dead Man on Campus and stuff like that.
I was going to bring him up too. I was like,
Yeah.
Because I don't think he's famous to anybody else. We should fucking do a commentary for Dead Man on Campus sometime. I fucking love that movie.
I have, you know what? I saw it once.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Like when it first came out on VHS, I rented it.
It holds up. But just the
Anyway.
fact that you remembered that's amazing.
So it had a decent cast. I was a little bit again. I didn't like the look of Jason in the movie.
I agree.
He was way too tall. Didn't look big. Ken Kurtzinger was the guy's name, and he was actually the stunt double for Kane Hodder as Jason in Part 8. Believe it or not.
Yeah, and I heard it was just something about like the guy who directed it. He just wanted somebody that he knew better or was whatever. But I remember even at the time, like Kane Hodder was so well established as the guy that there were like fan fucking protests and shit.
Oh, everyone was mad. Everyone.
And then when you saw the finished product, it's like, yeah, why? Why is this guy Jason?
I did like the look of Freddy though in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, and just the basic general, like, yeah, Freddy's got the fire thing and Jason's got the water thing, even though none of that was really all that prevalent.
Yeah, that wasn't really canon until that point.
But it was like a pretty good way to just, like, I guess it's just because this had been the thing people had been talking about for 20 years. The fact that it actually happened and it wasn't terrible, like, I guess I'm grading on a curve.
Yeah.
But I remember when I left the theater, I was like, hey, yeah, like, that could have been worse.
It could have been worse. I mean, I didn't think it was great, but it could have been worse by far.
But yeah, should we just let's do our process? So, okay,
do
what do
our
we got?
thing.
Bottom of the barrel, we got 8. So
Yes.
is it better than 8?
Yes.
Jason 10,
Yes.
Jason 9. I mean, probably. It's got
Yes.
Freddy in it and shit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that at least makes it interesting. So now we get into the OGs, the actual classic films, part 1.
No.
Yeah, I agree. So Freddy versus Jason.
It's the best of the worst.
Yeah, it's the best of all this fucking weird nonsense that they've been doing ever since 7. But that's it.
So now we're into our last.
Yeah, so is the only one left the remake?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I guess we'll see too, but I think we might disagree a bit on this because I think you're more of a fan of it than I am.
I am more of a fan than you are.
Yeah, because I don't mind it, but to me, it's kind of the definition of just a by the numbers slasher movie. I don't feel like they did literally anything new or unique or interesting.
I disagree. I don't think that they did anything crazy, new, or interesting. But by that point, what could they fucking do?
Yeah, well, I guess it's the difference too of like the expectations of like going into some of those dumb ones where my expectations were low, where I've just been rolling around in my head how I would do a Friday the 13th remake for my whole life. And this did nothing that I would do. It's just, all this was just a remake. Just like, let's just make a movie. Like, again, it's like if this wasn't called Jason, it could just be anything.
Yeah. So the guy that got playing Jason in the remake from 2009, his name's Derek Mears. He's been a stunt player for a long time. He's done a bunch of horror movies. You know, he was in the remake for The Hills Have Eyes as one of the cannibal mongoloids, whatever. He did a bunch of shit.
Oh, I take it back. Now that I think about it, there is one thing I really liked about it. I like how it's a really long opening.
The opening is amazing.
Yeah, like it doesn't say Friday the 13th for like 20 minutes. And it's like when it hits, you're like, oh, fuck, holy shit. Like that was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, the cast was decent in this one. The people you liked, you really liked. The people you didn't like, you really didn't like.
Yeah, although the downside to that, because yeah, obviously the cocky rich guy made an impression on me because I bring him up a lot in this podcast. But he was so annoying that it wasn't worth it. Like I wasn't satisfied when he died. I was still more annoyed that I had to be annoyed by him the whole time. I wanted him to really suffer, and he just didn't.
It sort of amalgamated the first 3 Friday the 13ths, if you really think about it, in a way. Well, not really. Kind of the first one and the third one. You had... you had the opening where you see the flashback of Jason's mom getting killed while she's trying to kill the Alice character, and him seeing it, from the bushes or whatever the fuck was going on there. And then it cuts to these teens who, it was very reminiscent of an 80s sort of slasher movie because they're all trying to smoke weed, they're all drinking, they're all trying to bone, stuff like that.
Oh, that's one thing too that kept distracting me. I mean, this isn't really the fault of the movie, but the main dude, the good dude that they meet that's like, hey, don't be sorry about my boyfriend. He's an asshole. Oh, it's all right.
Jared Padalecki.
Yeah, he's Dean from the Gilmore Girls. So the whole goddamn movie, I'm trying to take it serious when Dean from the Gilmore Girls is the main character.
That's Supernatural.
I mean, I never saw Supernatural. I'm sure he comes off better there. But yeah, that's just a case of like, who the fuck hired Dean from Gilmore Girls? Like, come on.
I liked how he got his mask in that movie. I dug the sack head and the makeup effects, and the practical effects in it were really good.
Yeah, I guess the difference is like we did our episode about top remakes, because like a lot of these remakes that kind of get maligned, but they kind of don't deserve it because they really did do interesting, cool stuff. Mm-hmm. Where like I'm definitely holding the Friday the 13th remake to a different standard because it's Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Where I feel like the old ones, like they were just, especially when you watch that documentary, and poor old Sean Cunningham is just like every year, like, oh, what are we going to do now? We got to make a new thing. So they're just fucking throwing shit at the wall and hoping it works.
Right.
And then in that middle period, I mean, it was just a disaster. Who the fuck knows what was going on with all these weird, bad Jason movies. So, but I feel like by the time of the remake, like, this is going to be a weird comparison, but it makes me think of The Phantom Menace. Like, we've had 20 years to think about this. Now let's nail it. And they didn't. They just made a movie, So, I mean, it's like, it's not bad, but I really needed it to be more than it was, I guess.
I really dug it for what it was. There were some things that I thought were stupid, like, Jason sort of being ultra intelligent in that, he has all these, like, little traps set up in the underground passages and all this stuff. Like, that stuff was crap. But when Jason's out and about and he's hunting the teenagers, at their cabin and stuff like that, like, that's really good.
Well, even if I was to compare it to the other remakes in and around it, like, I think the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake is way better. I think the Hills Have Eyes remake was way better. Like, I don't even think that it really holds up to some of the better remakes.
I can agree with that, but I'm willing to take the Pepsi challenge on the list and fight for it a little.
All right. Well, see, this is where it's going to get weird. So, I mean, compared to at the bottom of the list, we got Part 8. So, right. I mean, that's fair that it's better than Part 8. Yeah. It's a lot better than Part 8. So, yeah, here's where I feel like, yeah, it's been a pretty easy list. It almost might even be, I feel like right here might be where our lists split, and we may need to have two lists. Because there's no way I can put it above Jason X. Jason
Really?
X is way better. Jason X is so creative and so clever and all these things where I just feel like nobody had a clever thought in their head with the remake. They
100% disagree.
Yeah, and again, I just can't do it. That's so in my list. Well, okay, so your list. Wait, no, my list. How does? Okay, yeah, this would be my list where the remake, ding, here we go, goes under 10, but. Now, yeah, we did pretty good that we got all the way to the modern era before we come to blows, and we got to just get into 69 and see who comes first to see who wins. That's how we that's how we do it, right? So yeah, so now for Ray's list, we'll keep on moving up the list. So, all right, so for Ray's list, which is going to slightly differ from my list in just this one film. So the remake is better than Jason X?
Yes.
Is the remake better than Jason Lives?
Friday the 13th, Part 6?
Oh, sorry. What was Jason 9 called?
Jason Goes to Hell?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, it's clearly better than that, right? See, that's where it gets weird is, like, I think it is better than that as well.
It is better than Jason Goes to Hell.
Yeah. Yeah, see, this is where I guess my list is fucked up just because of Jason 10. Because then next we've got Freddy vs. Jason. I mean, I think you could argue it's probably better than that.
I think it's better than that.
And then we get the original, Part 1.
No, I can't put it better than Part 1 because Part 1 started everything.
You know what? I think what I'm going to do instead, because I agree with all of that. Okay, so, and then the remake. Yeah, I do think the remake, you can easily argue, is better than all that stuff. So the only thing fucking me up is dumbass Jason 10. So instead, here's what we'll do. We'll go with your list, and we'll just put asterisks, Keith likes Jason X too much. Because that's the only movie. That's that one movie. Just because that one entertained me so much is fucking up my whole thing.
So what is the Prison Wallet's official consensus from top to bottom,
right.
best to worst?
Here we go. The best to worst Friday the 13th films as decided by the Prison Wallets. Number 1 greatest Jason film is Jason 4.
Friday the 13th, the final chapter.
Yeah, I guess it's not called Jason 4, is it? Yeah, let's see. Are there subtitles for all of these?
For a lot of them, I'll list them.
Because number 2 is number 2.
Yeah, it's Friday the 13th Part 2.
Man, yeah, I mean, that makes sense, but it's a little almost weird to see it so high on the list. But 2 really is a quality film.
Yeah.
Man, our list is a little weird because then the third entry is number 5.
Friday the 13th, A New Beginning.
Yeah, which, I mean, nobody on earth is going to put it that high. But yeah, again, it's like you gotta go in with the right expectations and
Right.
shit. And yeah, 5 is a surprisingly sweet film. 4th best on our list is Jason 6.
Friday the 13th, Jason Lives,
Number 5 on the list is Jason 3.
which is just Friday the 13th Part 3,
Number 6 on the list is Jason 7.
which is Friday the 13th, The New Blood.
Number 7 on the list is the original Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Number 8. It was, yeah, and like this really, now that I'm thinking about it more, I was giving it a hard time, but the 8th highest one is the remake. And yeah, I mean, compared to all the dumb shit that's coming after this, why not? Like, yeah, the remake, it's a little stale to me, but it's certainly not a bad movie. There's a lot of good about it. So number 8 is the remake. Number 9, Freddy vs. Jason. Again, mainly just because it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
Number 10 is Jason Goes to Hell. Number 11 is Jason 10. And number 12, way at the bottom, shameful number 12, is Jason Takes Manhattan. Because that movie is stupid as
Right at the bottom, exactly where it belongs.
Yeah, because it's one of those ones too, like we were saying with 5, like when you go back and just look at if you, instead of the big picture, if you look more at the specifics and the details, there's all this good stuff in 5, where I feel like even if you go back to 8 and you're like, well, let me just look at special effects, let me just look at kills, let me just look at dialogue, let me just look at characters. No matter where you look, it's pretty fucking bad.
And I mean, I know this series so well. I've watched all of these movies so many times. I've researched the fuck out of them. I've seen many documentaries, even aside from the Crystal Lake Memories one. I have a bunch of books about Friday the 13th, including the great big compendium, the coffee table book, which is where the 7.5 hour long documentary Crystal Lake Memories is based from. So, I mean, I know my shit inside and out as far as this series goes, and I'd like to consider myself a little bit of an authority. I'm the Prison Wallets authority on Friday the 13th.
Well, it's nice too, because this is one of the few series where I think like we both have seen them all and we're relatively familiar. I mean, you definitely know more than me, but I've always had a little special place in my heart for this series. Like,
it's definitely the best overall series, even with all the crap. The crap is still better than half of the Nightmare on Elm Street series and at least a quarter to half of the Halloween series. I dare say a few of the Chucky movies, because I mean there's not nearly as many of them as there are some other series.
although I got to admit that Chucky has lived longer and better than I expected. Like, at this point, you'd really expect Child's Play movies to be pretty bad. They're still kind of good.
Have you seen the last two?
No.
Oh man, they're real good.
Yeah? Like,
Yeah.
including the remake or before that?
Well, no, before the remake. So, Curse of Chucky and Cult of Chucky were both directed by Don Mancini, the guy who created the series, and they're just really, really well done, like well crafted. Like,
Yeah, I definitely got to watch them. But I think the last one I saw was Seed of Chucky. But even like when it's getting a little silly, Bride of Chucky, all this stuff, I still like
so
them.
much fun.
Yeah, it's still good. Yeah. So yeah, I totally should watch those.
So that is the Prison Wallets rankings for the Friday the 13th series in order from best to worst.
And again, really just a nice excuse to just blab about a bunch of movies. So yeah, there we go. If you enjoyed that, please check out our other shit. We got commentaries and other just lists and top tens and dumb shit that we talk about. Just, browse through.
And if you disagree with anything or you want to debate it, by all means, leave comments somewhere. Like we have Instagram, we have Twitter, we have a YouTube channel. There will be video for this as well. So, leave a comment.
But yeah, so we're prison_wallets_pod on Instagram. We're Podcast Prison on Twitter. I'm Keith McNally on Twitter. KeithCourage.com/prison is where you can get our show.
You can also get us on Apple Podcasts and YouTube. I am BoraHero77 on both Instagram and Twitter. Again, leave comments, like, subscribe, rate, review, all that stuff.
Because like you were saying about if you have disagreements, like I guarantee every human on Earth disagrees. There's no fucking way anybody else would have that same list. I mean, for 5 alone. Like, we have a weird list, But again, yeah, if you're just like, what is all this shit about?
I will take the Pepsi challenge on that shit, and I will debate the fuck out of it. So,
and I definitely recommend if you're shocked and appalled, go listen to our Friday the 13th Part 5 commentary episode, and yeah, we explain the whole thing. So there you go.
So yeah, that's it for us.
What's Jason's famous catchphrase? I'll be back.
Shut the fuck up.
At the end of the night, I'm not at my comedy best. That's literally all I could think of.
Wow. What the fuck? Yeah. So yeah, from the Prison Wallets, again, like, subscribe, rate, review, and we'll see you then.
Yeah, go see if your grandma's a good kisser.
Your grandma fucking kisses like a champ. She sucks cock real well too.
Yep.
That was a good episode. Yeah.